Brics leaders announced on Thursday the admission of 6 new countries from next year as the club of extensive and populous emerging economies seeks to reshape the global order. The Brics, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, agreed at their annual summit to make Argentina, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and the United Arab Emirates full members from January 1st, 2024. For more perspective, VOA's Ndiho spoke to Nantulya in Salaam, Tanzania, a research specialist at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies in Washington, D.C.
From African government perspective, this is the first Brics that has been dedicated to Africa. That created quite a bit of buzz in different capital cities, including Dar es Salaam, where I'm speaking from. I think the key outcomes is a decision in principle to expand this coalition. As you know, a number of African countries have applied to join it. So I think that's one. I think besides the African countries, there are about 40 potential new applicants. So Brics is essentially being seen as a multilateral organization that can provide an alternative platform to raise the influence and the interests of African countries and global South countries on the international stage. Commitment in principle to first of all recognize the African Continental Free Trade Area and to assist African countries in meeting their industrialization targets.
A lot of analysts have suggested that right now Africa is like a beautiful woman. Everybody is trying to court Africa. The Brics are coming in. You have other organizations that are trying to come in. But ultimately, they all have an agenda. From your vantage point, what's that agenda?
If you look at countries like China, you look at countries like India, because really China and India are really the center of gravity in Brics. We can't really talk about Russia because Russia's trade with Africa is very, very minimal. Russia needs African countries, needs African diplomatic support because of the diplomatic isolation that the Kremlin is facing. But India, countries like India and China and Brazil, the interests are much deeper. These are countries that have always seen the value of the African market. Secondly, the African Continental Free Trade Area has also increased that interest, right? And persuaded countries like China and India that there's actually an economic rationale for engagement.
There is talk about how these Brics want to come up with their own quote-unquote currency, maybe to ditch the dollar. Is that a realistic thing that they can bring to bear?
The fact that African countries, together with Latin American and Asian countries and the People's Republic of China, are talking about creating a more diverse international system, creating a more multipolar world where the interests of poor countries can be served. I think it becomes very seductive in light of that. However, in the short to medium term, I don't think it's an easy objective to achieve, simply because all these countries, including China itself, is very well integrated in the dollar-denominated international financial system.
I think about 5 countries were invited to join, but there are others on the list who want to join this organization.
United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Iran definitely have an interest, a strategic interest. Argentina would also like to join this coalition. Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria, from the African continent also want to join, and they want to join. The primary reason is to really diversify international access to international finance. So among the Brics members themselves, you have differences, and you really cannot talk about strategic unanimity on the issue of expansion when it comes to these core countries. But certainly the rhetoric and the symbolism, that is very, very seductive.
Thank you for joining us on Africa 54. See you back tomorrow.